It's the 2-year anniversary of the channel, and I've got a huge announcement at the end of the video. Please stick around for that because everything that I've done on the channel so far has led to the thing I'm going to be announcing. Alright, so I'm being cancelled by Ethan Van Sciver. He says that I called him the F slur. Not the F word, the F slur that's used against gay people. And yeah, there's a clip going around that seems to indicate that I did. So we're going to check that clip out later in the video, see what really happened. He also says I'm a pussy bitch, liar, coward, in some order. I'm not sure if that's the exact order he said it, but those are the words he used to describe me whenever I blocked him on Twitter the other day. So we'll cover that in this video as well. I'll also explain my involvement with the recent debate between Ethan Van Sciver and Taylor from Taylor Talks Comics. Some people seemed to think that I was supposed to debate Ethan and then backed out and put Taylor in my place, which was never the case. Those events did not happen like that. I was never intended to debate Ethan. Maybe I didn't explain my involvement well enough whenever we announced the debate, but really I was just going to live stream the thing and, do some fact checking and commentary as people do on YouTube all the time. I was also playing a support role with Taylor in preparing for the debate. By the way, Taylor has a great channel called Taylor Talks Comics, and I'll leave the link below. You should go check him out and subscribe. He does some really great reviews of all kinds of comics, and he's got a good mind for comics, so check him out. Now, let's get some context. I'm a skeptic. Skepticism has been a foundational principle for me since I was 17, and I began to question the Southern Baptist culture and attitudes that I grew up in. So, skepticism plays a huge role in how I approach my content. But what does it mean to be skeptical? Skepticism is an attitude of doubt or incredulity, either in general or toward a particular object. It's a method of suspended judgment, systematic doubt, or a criticism characteristic of skeptics. And of course, in the religious sense, it's doubt concerning basic religious principles, such as immortality, divine providence, revelation, all the biblical claims that have no basis in reality and no evidence to support them. As Matt Dillahunty says, I'd like to believe in as few untrue things as possible. I want my understanding of reality to be as accurate as it can be, so that my actions and words have a more practical and ethical effect on my life and those around me. This is the same basic concept that underlies the scientific method. I'm no scientist, but skepticism can be applied toward pretty much anything and everything. If a claim is made, whether you realize it or not, your mind runs the claim through several contextual filters. Your previous life experience, your understanding of the natural world, your biases, and so on. How you utilize those filters and how mindful you are of the filters that you use to process claims and information can be crucial in assessing the validity of a claim or a piece of information. There are many epistemological tools that we can use to weigh a claim or an assertion. The first method that I tend to use in this age of fake news and insidious agendas is to remember that the burden of proof lies on the one making the claim. If my friend tells me that there's an eldritch god arriving through a dimensional rift in the sky, I'm going to want to go outside and verify that for myself before just accepting it as fact. It's an exceptional claim, and exceptional claims require exceptional evidence. On the other hand, if my friend tells me there's a blue Ford Taurus driving down the street, I really don't need to go outside and verify that claim. It's no reason he would lie about that, and blue Ford Tauruses drive around all the time. So it's an ordinary claim, and, an ordinary amount of evidence would suffice. And in this case, if it's a good friend and I trust what he has to say, he's not like a liar or something like that, I'll just accept his word for it. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You still may want to verify that blue Ford Taurus if it really matters to you. You know what I mean? You may want to go outside or look out the window and go, okay, yep, there it is. There's the blue Ford Taurus. But you wouldn't be as immediately skeptical as if someone said that Cthulhu was outside taking a shit on your yard. The burden of proof lies on the one making the claim, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Another simple tool that I often use to process claims is known unofficially as Hitchens' razor. What can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. If you tell me that DC Comics is going to publish a Superman comic book next month, I'll accept that immediately because DC has printed at least one Superman title every month for decades. I've got a video over on Anomic Comics about the publication history of Superman and his creators, Siegel and Schuster, and how they got pretty screwed when it came to making money off of their creation. In fact, they were represented in court by the same attorney who is now suing Marvel for the heirs of Ditko and Stan Lee and so on. But a Superman comic coming out next month is a very ordinary claim. The historical evidence is readily available, and even non-comic fans would probably accept it without scrutinizing it or doubting it. My mind hears this claim and wastes no time in accepting it as fact, because there's zero evidence to the contrary, and plenty of evidence to support it. Now let's say someone tells you that DC Comics will stop printing comic books altogether, and that the company is going to shut down. Well, now that's another thing entirely, right? That's an extraordinary claim. That's almost the exact opposite of what we know to be true so far. It's certainly alarming, and if someone tweeted that, or made a video about it, or wrote an article about it with that claim, it would drive some clicks for sure. And as everyone should be aware by now, sensational claims drive engagement online more than anything else. That's why clickbait is such a universally hated phenomenon. It's the entire business model for Alex Jones and InfoWars. Make alarming, emotional claims with very little to no context, very often just flat out untrue. Claims that appeal to people's fears and insecurities, that play to their biases, that spark anger, and people will engage with that content reactively. They won't even think about it. I've got a recent video with highlights from the stream I was on where we covered, the fandom menace when they debased themselves by filleting Alex Jones for a couple hours on their stream. Link below. But when people see that type of sensational claim, even when there's no evidence whatsoever, somebody just published an article or something, they don't care about the validity of the website or the writer, they don't check the facts or the sources. So yeah, let's say an article or a tweet or a video goes out claiming that DC Comics will stop printing comic books altogether, and that the company is going to close down. People will comment angrily if they're fans, they'll comment with snarky glee if they're anti-fans. They'll share it with their followers because who wouldn't want to be the one to inform their friends of such a drastic, unexpected change to the comics landscape? On February 28th, 2020, I published a video addressing just such a claim. The claim had been made by one Ethan Van Sciver, former professional comic artist and current professional YouTuber. His claim centered around the proposed line-wide initiative at DC, tentatively called at the time 5G. The 5G event would have seen a massive reshuffling of the superheroes' timelines, similar to what occurred with Crisis on Infinite Earths back in 1985. 5G was reportedly intended as an editorial mandate by longtime co-publisher Dan DiDio. Ethan Van Sciver said that sources within the industry told him that if 5G fails, AT&T will close the company. And he made this claim without an ounce of skepticism or a grain of salt. Here's what Mr. Van Sciver said at the time, as reported by Cosmic Book News, a Comicsgate propaganda website that traffics in right-wing rhetoric. Understand, it doesn't mean the characters are going to go anywhere. Batman, of course, is a prized possession of AT&T now. AT&T is Batman. And they're going to keep putting out movies and products and toys and all that stuff, Van Sciver said. Comic books are dead, and they are going to close up the publishing house soon. I'll tell you what a professional who I spoke to recently said. Yeah, I was talking to one of the higher-ups at DC Comics who said that if 5G doesn't work out, that's it. AT&T is closing the publishing arm. So this is ball game. It's pretty clear-cut language, right? Ethan seemed very certain of this claim. And my video highlighted the fact that not only has Van Sciver been on record making countless objectively false claims, but that his connections had probably mostly dried up once he was fired over years of online behavior that DC and AT&T found to be a liability to their brand and their financial success. Behavior that he has since weaponized and monetized as the unofficial figurehead of Comicsgate. So I applied Hitchens' razor to the claim, which I would have done no matter who made it, unless it was maybe like an AT&T or DC executive. But when the claim is levied by Ethan Van Sciver, I think it's safe to dismiss the thing outright. This claim was made without evidence, and in fact made by someone with a record of false claims, therefore it could be dismissed without evidence to the contrary. Similar to the Cthulhu shitting on your yard thing. Now I did admit in my video that maybe it turns out that I'm wrong. I didn't make my counterclaim with 100% certainty, because that would require me having the exact same information, the data points, and perspective as those executives. And had I been wrong, I would have gladly admitted such, and even apologized to Mr. Van Sciver for sullying his good name. Dan DiDio was fired from DC Comics. It was unclear whether 5G had been canceled too, since that was Dan's project. Then months later, DC announced Future State and Infinite Frontier, two event concepts that would attempt to clean up the continuity of the DC universe, to solidify the branding and the characters a little bit more, and to appeal to new readers, which is something comic books have to do all the time in order to stay in business. And it's something they've been doing really well at lately. Infinite Frontier was a sort of a relaunch, so it's kind of safe to say that that might have taken the place loosely from what 5G was. But it was the opposite of what 5G was alleged to be. 5G would have retconned much of the canon in order to make it more accessible, but erasing untold amounts of established lore and character development. Fans did not like that idea. Infinite Frontier, on the other hand, retained most of the established continuity and honored the legacy of characters and stories by folding them into modern continuity. Infinite Frontier seems to have replaced 5G as the line's relaunch strategy. Now we use the methodology of premise and conclusion. A premise is a statement in an argument that provides reason or support for a conclusion. The conclusion is part of an argument that is meant to be what the speaker is trying to convince the other person to believe. The premise of Ethan Van Sciver's claim was, if 5G is unsuccessful, 5G did not occur. It didn't happen. Even if we consider Infinite Frontier and or Future State as the replacements for 5G, and choose to see those as what the publisher's future was riding on, the claim still falls apart, because by all accounts, both projects were and are successful. Whether you personally like them or not is irrelevant to the fact that they've been well received by most fans, and the sales have been good. The conclusion of the claim's premise is that DC will shut down the company, or at least stop making comics. Well, here we are 18 months after the claim, and my video responding to it, and DC still here. Still printing comics, just finishing up Infinite Frontier and announcing new titles. The entire claim by Ethan Van Sciver has been shown as false, unfounded, and honestly laughable with the benefit of hindsight. Now you'd think that he might try to forget that he'd made such a dumb claim, and I definitely think that a self-correction is out of the question, but instead he popped up in the comment section of that same video from a year before. So I guess I was right after all. What? What? I'm not sure if he has a memory problem or if he's just the worst gaslighter in the history of gaslighting, but based on all you've just learned, can you explain this to me? Well, he tried to, and this is all entirely unrelated to his claim. It's purely obfuscation, and I really don't know if he believes what he's saying is supportive of his claim, or if he's just genuinely delusional. He starts adding in things that were not included in his original claim, that change the premise and the conclusion to such a degree that it's no longer the same argument. He pivots to, factoring in the hopefulness of the DC Comics source, which moves the goalposts just a bit, before moving them even further, by saying, "We've seen mass firings." Okay, yeah, that's kind of true. There's been a lot of staff cut at DC. But companies cut staff all the time to save money, and it's not an indication that the company is closing. It's no secret that the comics industry is in flux right now, but the shifts are occurring much more in the realm of distribution. DC has reduced their line of titles, which again is definitely a response to the shifting sales methods, but also an attempt to make the books more accessible to new readers. Then he says, "Daniel Cherry has come in to manage the closure of the company." Citation needed, please. Now, the facts are that DC has reduced its line. It's publishing a lot of Batman and Bat-adjacent titles. And the publisher is not in peak health, right? But even if they canceled every comic book except one Batman title, Ethan's claim remains false. He doesn't want you to focus on the text of that initial claim. He relies on his fans' short memories and reactive, angry attitudes to fixate on those moved goalposts. It's like, jangling keys in front of a baby. You can make him follow it. But Ethan, I'm sorry, bud. I'm not one of your drones. I've been around the block too many times to fall for obfuscation tactics, moved goalposts that have nothing to do with the initial claim. 5G didn't happen. DC still remains a company that sells comics. All despite the pandemic, a huge change in distribution, and as you said, mass firings. Here's a list of current DC Comics titles being published. The thing about this claim is that even if DC does close down 5 years from now, 10 years from now, which I doubt, but even if it does, he'll claim victory, because facts and logic aren't his strong suit. He certainly speaks with authority, and his followers open up like baby birds as he regurgitates whatever serves his agenda right down their throats. And the agenda is this: run around screaming that the comic book sky is falling, but that he's got the solution for you. His own comics. Which he makes hundreds of thousands of dollars on, even though he only produces like 2 or 3 issues a year. But making comics is not his primary vocation. Incessantly shit-talking companies that actually do make comics regularly and lying to manipulate a narrative on YouTube is his real job. Oh, and guess what Ethan did as I was writing this script? He made the absurd and objectively untrue and easily falsifiable claim that DC has already stopped printing comic books. What? No shit. He's gotten so bold or desperate in his attempt to spin the narrative of comics collapsing that now he's just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. Here you'll see the comics titles currently being published by DC. I just bought some this week. I mean, at this point, it does start to feel like I'm bullying a man who's mentally unwell, but I don't think that's really it. Mental health is no excuse to, be a piece of shit and to lie. So, no, I just think he has like a personality disorder. Pathological liar. Maybe a narcissist. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. But, yeah, it fits. And all of that is why I was never planning to debate Ethan Van Sciver. There's no point. He has 2 skills that I can never hope to have. Drawing and lying. And he's very good at both. I wouldn't enter a drawing contest against him, just like I wouldn't enter a speaking contest against him. I know I have facts on my side, but I can admit that he is far more practiced in speaking off the cuff, and since he's not tethered to reality with his speech, he can just say whatever he wants, and say it forcefully, talk over me, and, he'll gain the optics of having won the debate. I would get nervous, I'd get flustered by his obfuscation and diversions like the memes that he was pulling up every time Taylor made a good point in their debate. Now I know that internet culture is centered around debates, but you'd have to be naive to think that debates are won or lost based solely on facts. It has a lot more to do with optics. If it had to do with facts, Ethan Van Sciver wouldn't be Ethan Van Sciver. Not one that anybody would know of. And Ethan knows this. That's why he refuses to debate anyone unless it's on his channel. And the rare times that he has debated somewhere else, it's with a moderator who's shown themselves to be in favor of Comicsgate and Van Sciver. Adam Friended and Nick Rakita are 2 such sycophants who have pretended to be unbiased arbiters, and yet if you watch any debate with them as the mod, you'll see clear favor for Ethan and sometimes outright disdain for his opponent. So when Taylor C. Mitchell came to me asking for my guidance on debating Ethan Van Sciver, I advised him to not debate Ethan Van Sciver, for all the reasons that I just explained here. But Taylor had already committed to a debate. Ethan had accepted, and nothing I could say would prevent that. So the responsible thing to do in that case was to support him, give him tips and advice based on my observations and experience. So Taylor and I spent a couple of weeks sporadically messaging back and forth. He watched all my videos on the subject, and then about a week before the scheduled debate, Ethan was made aware of my involvement. What followed was several days of Ethan having Twitter tantrums, which I can only assume was due to realizing Taylor would be far more well-equipped than he had assumed. See, Ethan watches my channel. He's always in the comments of videos that mention him, which is still fascinating to me because I'm a fraction of his size. His channel, I mean. But, yeah, also. He knows I've got his number. He knows I've been observing and taking note of patterns, collecting evidence of the various harassment campaigns and hate speech that he's done, that's been done in his name or in service of Comicsgate, the brand that he is a proponent of. He knows, and he's so scared of me that he lies about me. If he had the facts on his side, he could just shut me down with those. Instead, he makes more absurd claims with no evidence, such as when he freaked out to Taylor and said I'd called him the F slur. So, here we are. Let's get to the clip, right? The clip of me saying the F slur.
Fuck you, you fucking faggot. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Listen to you. Oh, you're a pussy.
Oh shit, no, that's not me. That's him. That's Ethan saying that word, angrily. That's Ethan saying that to somebody else. There is no clip of me saying that. I never called him that. I haven't called anyone that since I was a teenager, before someone explained to me that it's a harmful word even if you're just saying it jokingly to your friends. I stopped saying it. Maybe projection on his part. Or maybe he means the Wolverine is Gay song that I did, where I changed some lyrics to be pro-LGBTQ. Wolverine is gay. Yellow tights should have given him away. But I never said that word in the song. So again, him accusing me of saying that is more an indictment of how he thinks about gay people than anything about me. He also said that I called him fat. And okay, I've made a couple of snide remarks, including one a moment ago, but I'm fat too. So whatever. And his own audience calls him fat all the time. You can see that in the debate with Taylor as well. So maybe that's the difference. If I support him financially, I can say he's a morbidly obese sack of bullshit and lard. I'll send him a $2 super chat. Ethan also said that I threatened to beat up his friend Richard Meyer. Well, let's go to the tape. And Lil Dicky Meyer, if you take issue with the content of this video and can get your tongue out of Ethan's enormous gaping asshole long enough, I'd be glad to meet up and settle it like men, you fucking bitch ass cuck. Nope, I did not threaten to beat him up. I offered him a fair fight if he found my content to be upsetting. You'd think he'd at least understand the concept of a fair fight. So yeah, Ethan tried to wiggle out of the debate upon hearing my involvement, but he knew he couldn't because he would, by his own wobbly standards, appear to be a coward. He hemmed and hawed and even admitted that he doesn't want me fact-checking him in real time. He would have canceled the debate if I would have live-streamed it, because he did not want me to fact-check him. I'm not sure there's a clearer admission of being a liar than that. Ethan is always the victim. No matter what happens, who's involved, what evidence to the contrary, he will always spin the narrative to portray himself as the poor, innocent, misunderstood, maligned comics pro who just wants to see good comics. He's been bullied by SJWs, despite not being able to define SJW in a coherent manner. See this video for more. And he's tired of these SJW comics, despite not being able to explain what an SJ comic is, as seen in the debate with Taylor. Taylor did a great job, by the way. I'll say again, you should go subscribe to Taylor Talks Comics. Because of Ethan's incessant lying, gish galloping, obfuscation, and random memes that he'd play to distract from the strong points Taylor was making, there was no scenario where Taylor would exit that debate as the clear winner, particularly to the Comicsgate crowd. But to a more impartial viewer, it's pretty obvious Ethan struggled to make valid points that weren't based on his feelings. Vague feelings of wokeness and SJWs. He contradicted himself throughout the debate. He holds everyone else to nebulous standards while holding himself to none. If it wasn't for double standards, Ethan Van Sciver would have no standards at all. He admitted to not reading any comics from the big two, Marvel and DC. But damn it, he just knows an SJ comic when he sees one. Then he points to the same two comic books used by anti-SJWs in thumbnails ad nauseum. One which was never published because both right and left mocked it to oblivion. And one that's targeted at young girls. But somehow, these are proof that the industry is dying or collapsing or whatever. Although, he did admit early in the debate that maybe the industry's not collapsing. Maybe it's just stabilizing. He had no choice but to concede that point when Taylor hit him with the sales figures showing comics doing quite well, even compared to Ethan's best-selling titles at DC in the mid-2000s. As another example of dishonesty and how he makes up his own rules while holding others to whatever arbitrary standards serve his needs. After that February 2020 video, Ethan and I had a Twitter exchange in which I fact-checked him, and he responded by blocking me. Okay, fine. He's not obligated to let me see his tweets. I'm not one of those terminally online internet weirdos who thinks blocking someone is an act of cowardice. but Ethan is. And when he showed up in my replies before the debate, I realized, oh, he unblocked me so that he could talk shit. After 18 months or so, he unblocked me. So, I blocked him. Because it's fucking funny to me, Ethan. Because I love pointing out your hypocrisies, Ethan. Because you're a silly bitch, Ethan. It's funny to see you make up rules and arbitrary signs of nobility and cowardice, then watch you break them. And as soon as I blocked him, he screenshotted it and called me a bitch, liar, pussy, coward, liar, bitch, pussy. You see the hypocrisy, right? Of course you do. The other reason that I supported Taylor in this debate was a more selfish one. If you've watched this channel since the beginning, you've probably heard me say that I started making videos with two very clear topics in mind that I wanted to cover. One of those was the Punisher police problem, which I covered extensively, and I'm still very proud of that work. I even did a condensed version, in honor of George Floyd last summer. The other one, however, was to be an exhaustive, in-depth look at Ethan Van Sciver, his well-documented history of online abuse, hate speech, harassment coordination, and general malice against anyone he deems as his enemy. For over a decade, he's shit in the pool of fandom, and encouraged other people to shit in the pool as well. Now, I've covered him a few times now, but I've still not made that in-depth profile that I had in mind for 3 years now. Taylor came armed with some terrific arguments and points that gave me a lot of confidence in his ability to debate. He had a lot of points that I had not considered, certain ways to frame his arguments that I was like, shit, that's brilliant, dude. All based on factual sales figures and so on. But he was also equipped with specific points that I knew I wanted Ethan on record addressing. In one spot, 1 3-hour video. That way he can't wiggle out of his contradictions and hypocrisy. With that debate, I now have everything I could possibly want, and more, to make that ultimate Ethan Van Sciver video. And so I will. I don't yet have a release date for it, and I honestly don't know how long it will take to produce. It will be my most meticulously made video by far, and it will probably be like feature film length. The project's going to be huge, and it's going to be a lot of work. But the project is what Actual Context, now Forced Adversity, was launched to do. It's all been leading to this. I'll keep you posted on progress, with updates and whatnot, and as soon as I have a release window, I'll let you know. But it's coming. The Ultimate Deconstruction of Ethan Van Sciver. Coming soon in 2022. That's the best I can give you. You can't rush greatness. If you'd like to support this huge project, head over to patreon.com/forcedadversity or become a channel member by clicking join below this video. Alternatively, you can make a one-time donation to paypal.me/actualcontext. Massive thanks to my patrons and channel members. You guys are amazing, and you make it worth it. Love you all. Peace. Yeah, that's okay. Let me tell you why. He's the best there is. What he does and what he does, it's fucking fabulous.